Hey folks, welcome back to another video. I want to show you in this video how to make a quick generative patch. I start simple and then I make it more complex over time. And I try to make it quick and easy for everyone to follow. So we have here an empty project. Maybe I choose a slower BPM here, 85. And in here we use a polygrid. And the first thing we need is some nodes, and you can create nodes in a lot of different ways. You saw me use the step mod in my recent videos a lot. But we also can take here the pitches module for that. And I want to use here the pitches module more like a collection of nodes we want to use. So we want to stay in A minor, so I'm using A probably a lot. And I want to use C maybe, and I want to use a D. I want to have an F in there, maybe, let's say, a G also. Maybe another A, maybe an E, something like this, or maybe this E here. We can also use maybe more nodes, let's say 16 steps, and choose more different nodes here from the scale. So all the white nodes basically. D down here, maybe another A, or maybe an A also here. So I choose here a lot of A's, so the probability that we get an A is pretty high. So that's thinking behind it. We disable here the phase precord, so the playhead stops playing. And we want to introduce here some modules to advance through the step sequencer. And some question I saw today on Reddit was, how do I can use triggers or gate signals to advance basically this playhead? You can do this by using a counter. Go with triggers into the counter counts up, and then it spits out here a phase signal that steps through this pitches module here. And you can see it skips certain nodes, right? Every second node, every other node it skips. And that's because the step count of this module here is 16 and the counter only has 8, right? So we need to increase this to 16, and it takes up here every single step. So this already gives you an idea that you can influence here the counter and influence how the playhead here advances through this module, right? So if you change this or modulate this later on, you can influence how the melody sounds. So we can use here a wavetable real quick. Wavetable oscillator. We use this as a pitch input. We don't need a pitch precord. We need to increase here the amount. Use a simple envelope, AD envelope, and just an output here. And then we use here maybe convolution reverb. Use a delay plus with reverb on there. You maybe use a chorus plus, maybe in between here. Delay 2. Lots of nice things. And then, yeah, use also trigger output here to trigger the AD. So this is a melody, right? It chooses always the same notes out of this box, out of this module here. But if you change here the counter size, it plays a different melody because it chooses different notes. So just already with this small little patch here, you can do a lot of things because you can modulate this inside of Bitwig. You can also modulate the trigger size, so you get a different, a different rhythm, different melody. Okay, so that's an idea. You can also take here the output of this counter, which is just a phase signal, and you can use this to influence basically the index of the wavetable. So now, the problem is every node that you play in here gets the same index of the wavetable. So if you always play this node, you get the same index for this node inside of this wavetable, right? So that's maybe not that interesting. So what you can do is you can just make it simple, use a long delay here. And maybe resize this a bit. And just delay this signal by maybe, let's say, 4 8 nodes, and then go into this wavetable here. So now it's basically the same as before, just to use a different node, or one node that's exactly 4 8 nodes earlier, and you use this node then for the wavetable position or the phase signal at this point in time for the position of the index, right? That's also always the same thing. But when you modulate the counter and you play a different melody each time, you basically delay, you delay the notes when you play the notes and when you play a different position in the wavetable. So it gets you always a different note for a different wavetable position. I hope this makes sense. You have to think in time. It's a bit of time travel you have to make in your head. So when you modulate basically these two values continuously, differently, maybe with a randomize button or something like this, you always get a different position for a different node. So which makes it more interesting in my opinion. But before we do this here, we can also influence, of course, maybe with some phase modules here, we can influence how we play this thing here, this step sequencer. So let's go here to 16 nodes. Let's increase here the speed. So you can see we step here through all the steps continuously from start to finish, but we can also use here reverse. So now we are playing basically this whole sequence in reverse. So you can see from the end to the finish to the start. And when we remove this, it's the other way around. You can also say, let's use a mirror. Right, so we get the stepped signal here, and the signal is then folded in a way. So we play back and forth all the time. Okay, so then we take here an octaver. So we can influence the octave. Maybe you start at -2. To have some kind of bass for that. But then I want to introduce here some voice stacking. So I select the device, go to maybe 3 voices. So now we play this whole patch here 3 times at the same time. You can hear it's already a bit phasing. And we use a voice stack modulator. And we have 3 voices, of course. And when we use this modulator here, we have a value from 0 to 1. So because we have 3 voices, we modulate this here by exactly 3. Which means every octave, or we play basically 3 voices at 1 octave. So the first octave is -2, the second voice is -1, and the third voice plays at the octave 0. Okay, so then we can say the first voice plays 3, the second plays at a different rhythm, let's go to 5, and the third voice plays at maybe 7. It's a nice small little polyrhythm. Maybe I need a filter in here. Let's go for a cell and key filter. So we disable here also the pitch pre-chord and pull this down to C3. Just double click here, right? And then we use a bandpass filter. Increase the resonance. And then we want to do the same thing here with a long delay, but instead of using the phase signal, we use the pitch signal here. And go into the cell and key filter, maybe delay it even more. And change here the frequency, the center frequency of this bandpass filter. So now, because we have this delay, we don't use the current note as a pitch input for the frequency here. We use always the note that is 8 notes earlier. And because we change the melody all the time here, we get always a different note that currently plays and a different pitch from the note earlier, if this makes sense. Of course, you have to change here this all the time to actually make it different each time, but you get the idea. Maybe we order this here a bit more, because the polyrhythm is nice, but it's, you know, it's a bit too busy. So we can use a clock quantizer here. And trigger, or use a trigger here as a clock source. When you want to change the melody, you can just change the counter size here, and you get different selection of notes. Maybe instead of C3, let's go to C5. So we amplify certain upper harmonics. So you lose a bit of tonality because we kind of remove the fundamental frequency of the sound. But we can maybe use a sub oscillator here. Maybe put this over here. Can use a sub oscillator playing on the same octave, just a sine. Use a mixer and bring this back. So this is here C5, maybe C6. So C3 always uses the center frequency basically, But you can just fake that you want to shift it 1 octave higher by, instead of using C3, you use C4 or C5 or C6. In a way, you can use an octaver here instead of this trick here. Or maybe using 2. Let's use here maybe a step mod for that. A nice uneven number, maybe 9 steps. And modulate this here. Yeah, and because we amplify certain overtones, what's better to bring in some different overtones than using maybe a transfer and distort the whole signal here? And if it becomes too dissonant, you just mix in the sub-oscillator, which basically nails the fundamental and gives the ear something to orientate itself in which kind of pitch we are, right? We can also, let's say, is there something you can use here to yeah, we need to modulate this here in certain ways. Maybe use a different step mod here. Oh, I need to hit play. Eight notes. So we use this here to maybe change up the count size or the mirror. Maybe a bit slower. And maybe a different one, different step size, maybe 7. And for triggers here for the rhythm. Okay, kinda like it. Yeah, and that's basically how you create these kind of patches. I started simple with some basic ideas, and then when you advance this patch even more, you get more and more ideas how you can influence this patch with modulators. And the more modules you have in here, of course, the more modulation targets you have. And the only thing you need to avoid or try to avoid is that it becomes too random. Because when it's too random, then all of this becomes obsolete and you can just take a random modulator here and spit out some random notes, right? And modulate everything at random, and you have basically more or less the same outcome. So there's a certain sweet spot between it's too random and it's too monotone or too, yeah, you know, too straight. So there's always a sweet spot in between, and you need to find the sweet spot, in my opinion, to make it pleasant. And something I get asked all the time is, yes, you can record the notes of this here. Just take a note out, for instance, right? You take here the trigger out, you take the notes pitch output and all the other stuff you want to use, maybe here velocity or the MIDI channel or pressure or some other MPE stuff, right? And you get the notes here. Then you create another instrument track, and as an input you go down to tracks. You can see here the polygrid is already flashing nicely. Hit record and then just create a new clip here and record everything that you get from the grid. And then you can, yeah, use it in kinds of different ways. Oh, you can see we have already some MPE, some micro pitches in there, because we don't use actually here a sample and hold. So we can do this. Actually, we have to use here sample and hold here, trigger here, trigger there, bam. Then we get the same thing, but without all the micro expressions. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you have some questions, please leave it down in the comments. See you in the next video. Bye.